Hello, I'm James Clark. I'm one of the principal consultants here at One of Many. I've just spent the last 2 years working with a large global financial institution. Today we're going to be talking about the case study where we've helped that particular organisation meet some organisational changes in order to meet some regulatory deadlines. The bank had a well-known case where it needed to meet some regulatory requirements, but the issue that they had with that was decision latency was really high. That basically means the time it takes to resolve issues, risks, dependencies was really high. That came down to poor communication, the alignment wasn't great, there was no visibility into the progress of work that they had, and as such they were behind on a lot of those projects. There were a lot of issues that came from siloed communication, so we had this kind of like hierarchy of how information occurred, and from each level that it came down it essentially ended up being diluted even further, which meant the people at the bottom were so far away from the message that had happened from the top, and the messages that were coming up, the same thing, got diluted as it went towards the top. So there was no one that was aligned, and as you can imagine, that caused all sorts of chaos with the projects that they had. We were engaged with the Centre of Excellence that was there, so the Transformation Office, so we partnered with them in order to design a bespoke operating model. So that was to help them increase the visibility of work that they had, speed up how long it took to make decisions, and ultimately make sure that they were on time with their project deliveries. Aligned with our values of meeting people where they are, we sat down and worked with the Centre of Excellence to understand where they were now, where we needed to go to, get an alignment between both of those to make sure that we were all heading across on the same path. And we essentially developed an operating model that consisted of 3 phases. So there was crawl, walk and run. Crawl was essentially making sure that the foundations were set in place, so everybody had the same skill set, capability, in order to make sure that we were building on firm ground. We then moved into the walk phase, which was more of the execution now. So we're starting to say we've learned all of our lessons in crawl, or we've at least been set up in order a way of being able to do so. Start to work the way that we need to, start capturing data, visualizing the way that we work before moving into the run stage, which is essentially where we're trying to offload all of the teachings that we've given internally to those customers. So we're trying to now think about our exit strategy. We're trying to make sure that the capability is being grown internally within that organisation, so they're able to keep this going themselves, building that self-sustainability. But alongside that, we're now starting to make data-driven decisions. So when we started at the beginning, you're going, okay, this organisation has got issues with its visibility, it's got issues with its communication, and most importantly with the decision latency, so the time that it's taking. So instead of walking into meetings and trying to say this is all opinion based, we're now bringing data to this. We're now saying, okay, it used to take you 30 days in order to make this decision happen. We've now got it down to 5 days. We got it down to 5 days by making sure we had the right people in the right place at the right time. So eradicating meetings that are redundant, repurposing meetings, making sure that you don't have meetings with like 30 people in it when there only needs to be 5. We have to have the key decision makers that are in there. Through that partnership, we managed to realise where they were, where they needed to be, and the small steps that we took in between, which was through that approach of crawl, walk and run. Alongside that consisted a whole bunch of training, coaching, mentoring, you name it. We kind of fulfilled those roles, whether that was even us being as consultants giving external advice, or it is getting our hands dirty and actually doing it with them, but having someone by our side from the internal capability so that we can teach that to them. I think that you would always say in any form of change there was a little bit of resistance to start with. So we were at this organisation for 2 years, and we started in a particular area before moving into all of the areas across the finance transformation office. But initially, some concerns, I think, from individuals about what that meant for them, as you'll tend to find that with any form of change, people feel vulnerable. They don't know what it means for them. You know, am I going to lose the political power that I once had? Am I going to have to change the way that I work? I've got my life quite comfortable right now. Why change, kind of thing? So we had those. But then once you start bringing people along on that journey with you, so you say, hey, come on, let's make the change together, rather than saying we're going to make change to you, it became a lot easier. So again, back to the ethos of meeting people where they are. When we were partnering with them, made it really clear why we were doing it, how they could be involved and what it meant for them, we generally started to see a lot more traction. There wasn't one single outcome, so there was a few. As I said, we managed to reduce decision latency by 83%. So we started tracking how long the risks, the dependencies and the issues were open for, which was on average about 30 days. So that's the point that you say, hey, I've got this risk. People would go away, try and work on them, and then either close them or say they're mitigated enough that they no longer pose a risk, down to 5 days. So the 83% comes from the 30 down to 5. So it's quite a drastic reduction in time, which ends up leading to a much bigger story where 100% of the milestones that they had ended up closing on time. Now I know that sounds cliche because we're saying, oh, you managed to get everything to 100%. Well, we did by reducing the decision latency down. But not only the decision latency, we trained over 500 members of staff. As we said, part of the operating model in Crawl was building those foundations. That's teaching people about how to do effective risk management. That is setting up meetings to make sure the right people are in the right place at the right time, which actually ended up in a reduction of around about 490 hours annually of directors' time. So if you were to try and attribute a dollar cost to that, we're probably going to be in the millions in terms of how much monetary value was saved. But 490 hours of a director's time is huge. It means that they can be focusing their efforts into areas that they need to be focusing their efforts into, not being dragged into meetings where they aren't actually anybody who's making those decisions. We were moving people into those areas. So as we say, what we essentially did is we reduced the time to make decisions by 83%, 30 days down to 5. We trained over 500 colleagues, various topics, as we said, that's in agile product management, into ways of working, risk management, how to write user stories, lots and lots of things that contribute up into that time saving. 490 hours, as we said, by being able to move the right people into the right place at the right time. And through one of our activities with the data team, we did some analysis where we were able to uncover 95% of critically known data elements that needed work to be done on them. So it's a big list of work, again, coming back to the lack of visibility and clarity on what work's going on. There was a big list somewhere that said we've got all these things which are critical elements to us in the bank that are going to stop us being able to be successful. We were able to identify resolutions for 95% of those, which was either saying this is the fix, this is the group of people that need to fix it, this no longer needs to be fixed because it's superseded by somewhere else, or we're able to essentially just combine all of those things into some of the other outcomes that we've said that we would achieve. Like many engagements, we encounter quite a few issues. We've alluded to one of them already, which was reluctance to change. People need an incentive to change. When a directive just comes from above that says, hey, you must need to do this, sometimes people need to know why. They need to connect with the reason that's behind this. But again, we managed to achieve that by meeting them where they are, partnering with them, doing the change with them rather than to them. So that was a big a big one for us. But we are talking about an organisation that's got 500,000 employees. If you think of a small town within the UK, trying to get everybody pulling in the same direction is impossible. Trying to do that in a large organisation is also, for a better word, impossible. So I think there was a bit of scepticism that change could actually make a difference. You know, we weren't the first people that had gone into this organisation to help them change, that had large consultancies that had been in there before, wrote a bunch of playbooks, said this is what you need to do, and left them when it comes to the implementation stage. So it's always going to be difficult for us when there's been so many efforts that have happened before that people essentially go, not again. But obviously it was different this time. We like to do consultancy differently. We like to be human and relatable and do the change with them. One of the other problems that we had, and this isn't to do a disservice to the individuals we work with because they were brilliant, but sometimes the capability or the capacity wasn't quite where it needed to be, and that really wasn't their fault. They were being asked to fulfill roles which that wasn't their skill set, right? So you could be asking a product manager to be a scrum master, or you're asking a developer to be a product owner or something like that. Essentially they had never done these roles before, so a challenge to us was, again, meeting them where they were, helping them build that capability, holding their hand through that journey, but not in a way that is condescending, you know, because these are smart individuals that we're working with. It's about enhancing the skills they already had and channeling them into their new areas of focus. So that was a bit difficult at times, especially when people have been pushed into that role that didn't necessarily want to be into that role, or people that really wanted to be in that role, but you know they haven't done it before. It's a bit like me wanting to, you know, try something new that I haven't done before. I'm going to need that support. I would say that was a challenge, but I would also say a nice challenge, you know, where you get to work with people who are enthusiastic about trying and learning new things. If you're interested in finding out more about this particular case study, you can actually download it on our website, or if you'd like to discuss it in person, please reach out to us on our socials or our email, and one of our consultants will get back to you.